Hello and welcome back to the Insightful Base podcast. We are so excited today because we finally got the chance to have Ms. Jessica Yañez here with us today, the founder and host of the Wine and Chisme Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am so good. I'm so happy to be here with you, ladies. How are you?
Good, good. I was feeling a little rusty because we haven't recorded in a while, so I'm just trying to get back into the groove.
I hear
Yeah,
ya.
yeah, yeah. And I'm getting like the whole post-COVID symptoms, guys. So my brain is literally not functioning that well. But we are here, and I'm so happy
Yeah.
to be here and be with Jessica because we're gonna talk about the wine and chisme. Which, guys, I'm wearing like my chisme time shirt because like wine and chisme. So this is
Yeah.
perfect. I want to know everything about your podcast, why you started, and that's what we're going to be talking about. And before that, let's go ahead and talk about you, Jessica. Who are you? Who is Jessica Yañez?
Why are you trying to get all deep? Like jump into the
I know,
deep end.
right?
Who are we
Let's
really?
let's get into this chisme. It's the real good chisme, guys.
What is your biggest fear, huh?
I'm like, "Then
We'll get
nobody
into
likes
that. But you have your wine, though. You have
I
your
do.
wine.
I
Yeah.
do have my wine. Um, I am just a San Diego girl living in a wine and chisme world. That is the most
I
corny
love it.
thing ever.
I love it.
I grew up here in San Diego. I've been very, very fortunate. My life has obviously it's been far from perfect, but I can say with all confidence that, I've lived a life with no regrets. And I hope I continue to do that. I have lived in 4 different states. Um, I'm a second gen Mexican American, and I know that with that comes certain privileges, right? But also, I'm very fortunate that my family was still very, very. We're always been very, very connected to our culture, and as I have gotten older, I've only gotten even more connected. I've gotten even more involved. I've gotten even more to this point where now I have this podcast where it really is about amplifying voices across communities of color. And, um, I'm like I said, I'm just in a very, very fortunate position to be able to do that, and then to be able to drink wine and talk to like all of these amazing people. Uh, it's not far from who I was when I was a little kid, right? I was always that little kid who'd like come up and be like, "Hi, how are you? I'm Jessica. Tell me everything about you." But now I am older and I record it and I drink wine.
Yes.
Love
Now it's a
it.
little more fun, huh?
A little more fun. Yes, exactly. But I always knew I was always like the person who everybody would come to find out who the new person was. Who is that? Jessica knows. Jessica knows who that is. Who is she? Where are they from? Or
Mm.
who's he? Or like a girl liked a guy. Oh, Jessica knows him. Hey, can you hook it up, girl? Like,
Oh my gosh. You know what it reminds me of? The quote from Mean Girls? Like, that's why her hair is so big, 'cause it's full of secrets. I don't know. It reminded me
Mm.
of
yes, I am the original Gretchen Wiener.
Yeah.
My dad doesn't own toaster strudels though.
Is the video lagging a little bit
It
right
is
now?
a little
Or is
bit.
it just Oh, okay.
Okay, so we were talking about yourself. That it's fun now
Back,
because you
like
can
going back to the
going
beginning.
back. Yes, we were talking about cheeseman and wine and how it's fun now because you have wine. And what I really love about your podcast, you're not just drinking wine, you're also supporting, other owners, wine owners, Latino wine owners. So tell us a little bit about how this idea like came to you? Was there somebody that told you, Jessica, you have to do a podcast? Or, like what was it that made you take this step?
So initially it started out as like a YouTube channel. I was talking to a friend or something and I forget. And I said, well, I'm not quite midlife yet. And I was like, ooh, that would be a good name for something. And, I feel like there's this ignored demographic. Like everybody wants you when you're in your 20s and up to like once you hit 35, I feel like some way we become invisible, especially as women. And I felt like, and then especially once you hit 40, from like that 40 to 50 range, I feel like nobody talks about that. Nobody shares the experiences because at that point you've truly lived life. Like so many people have lived life. So many people have gotten married, had kids, divorced, this, that, like changed careers or changed, and I just felt like these things weren't really talked about. So it started as a YouTube channel with my friend. All the videos I think have been taken. I think I've taken them down at this point. And we were just talking about those experiences. But then the scheduling there was a lot of conflict with scheduling. And when you're constantly depending on somebody else, sometimes it can get a little wonky. And so I was like, you know what, let's scrap it because it was just really hard to figure out what the timing was, especially because we wanted a video. It wasn't just an audio thing. We had to be in the same place, the same time, like all of that. And I was like, well, what if I transition this to an audio format? Then I can talk to anybody I want to. I can have a different guest all the time, or I can do something by myself. And I have friends, one friend in particular, Pam Covarrubias from Café con Pam, who had been doing a podcast. And I was telling her, she's like, you need to do it. Do it, do it. And so even the name has changed initially, because initially it was going to be Amor con labios. Okay. And the meaning of that is like love comes from the words that you're spoken and down there too, right? So it's kind of just like this play.
That's so funny.
And I was actually at the Latitude conference with a bunch of friends, and Patty Delgado from Hija de tu Madre was there, and we were having lunch. And my birthday was coming up. They were asking what I was doing for my birthday. And I said, oh, I'm going to have wine and cheese. Meh. And and Patty loves a good pun. In fact, I just saw her when I was in Dallas and we were talking about this. And she was like, bitch, I love a good pun. You better change your Instagram name to that before I steal it. And I was like, oh, okay, I better change it.
Yeah.
So I changed it. And then when I was going through the podcast stuff, I just kept coming back to that name. And I was like, I love that name. I feel like that's just so much more me and what I would want. So then I changed from Amor con labios to Wine and Chisme. And I really wanted it to be about experiences across communities of color, because my friends come from across communities of color. And I think that so often we kind of silo ourselves, right? We silo ourselves. And even within the podcast community, you have Latino podcasts, you have entrepreneur podcasts, you have Black podcasts, you have we appeal to a very specific demographic. And I didn't see a lot that were like bringing our voices, collective voices together. And that's really what I wanted. And I was like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do, because my friends come from all cross communities of color. This is what I want the podcast to be about. Now, granted, it's very heavily skewed Latino because I am Latina and I have so many, and I'm involved in so many Latino organizations and everything like that. So it kind of lends, but I also have so many people from all over, all other demographics. And I love that. I love that people see my passion and that they see that, I want to be a safe space for all of us, not just some of us. And that's kind of how it all got started.
I love
No.
that. I love that you went with like your gut feeling. Like you just kind of, you're like, no, I'm gonna switch it up. Like this feels like more like me. So I love that you were brave enough to like change your mind, you know.
Oh,
And
I had a logo. I had like, I mean, girl, I had it all
oh
ready
my
with the other
gosh.
thing. And
Uh-huh.
I am so like, I couldn't be happier. And now I get people all the time. Oh my gosh, that name is so awesome. Like, how was that not taken? And I was like, because it was meant for me.
Yes.
It was meant for me.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, so funny story, guys. We were actually, or fun fact, we were actually in the Wine and Chisme podcast a while back. So that's why we're like, we have to bring Jessica, and it took us a while to bring you in because
Mm.
you know she's been busy with tours and like you know our scheduling too. So it's really hard to schedule like two podcasters.
It
um,
is. It
but we're
really,
so
you would think it
excited.
would be the easiest thing, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
no,
It's not.
it's definitely not. But we're so excited that you're finally here. And like I kind of want to hear about like your tour and how that's going. Like tell us a little bit about that.
So when I initially started the podcast, and I started it right before COVID, and I started it right before everybody and their mother's mother and their mother's cousins, great grandma, twice removed, had a podcast, right?
Yeah.
I literally started right before the pandemic. And it was always like my goal because I love to host. I'm not gonna lie, like I love having people over. I love feeding. I mean, I'm in my senora area, but I feel like I've been kind of that since I was lived by myself. I always want people over. Our house growing up was always the house that all my friends were at. My mom would be feeding everybody and stuff. So
Mhm.
I'm the oldest of three girls, so
Yeah.
that just kind of came naturally to me. And I just wanted this. I wanted to be able to have that in person as well. And so it was
Mhm.
literally always a dream of mine to be able to go on tour and to have these conversations.
Mm.
And 2020, obviously, that couldn't happen, and it wasn't going to happen. It was my first year of being a podcaster, and then the second year, I was like, well, maybe it'll happen 2021. Things were still kind of weird, still,
Mhm.
Then 2022, I started a new job, and at the end of 2021, I started a new job. And I
Mm.
was like, there's no way I can do that this year. There's just
Yeah.
like, I'm so enwrapped in my job, and I just couldn't take the time that I truly needed to do that. And then towards the end of 2022, like, yeah, the end, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Like next year, 2023, I'm gonna take it on tour. I will do 4 shows on the road. So
Mhm.
that way I'm not committing myself to too much,
Yeah.
right? But I'm gonna do this. And anytime you commit yourself to doing something like that, it is invigorating and scary as hell at the same
Oh yeah.
time. So I chose my cities based on like listenership and everything. And it always changes a little bit. So I chose LA, Dallas, New York, and then back home in San Diego.
Mm.
So, um, I'm very, very fortunate that I have this amazing group of that for my PR people. But when it comes to the logistics, I'm the one who handles it. And thankfully, I do events has always been part of my job, right?
Mm.
So literally went scouting in LA for the venue. We found a Latino owned art gallery and architecture firm that we ended up having it at. I had an indigenous woman do our grazing table with cheese and charcuterie and fruits and crackers and all of that. Um, I created the very first directory of Latino wine brands. So we had our wine brands there. They were there pouring, talking about it. And then we were talking, and I invested in a step and repeat. And if you don't know what that is, it's like those backgrounds that have all the logos on them that you
Oh,
take
I love
pictures in front
that. I
of.
saw your picture. It was so cute.
Yeah, so I invested in that. I had we talked, and then I reached out to people to be able to be on the panel. And the first panel was about representation in media.
Mhm.
And that, like I was telling you ladies before, it was probably one of my favorite. And I always hate when people say, what's your favorite episode? I always hate saying it because I feel like it just depends on what I need, right?
Yeah.
It depends on what I need. I might need to go back and listen to something because I need to hear what this person said again. But that is truly probably one of my favorites as well. Is it was just so in depth, it was so informative, it was so good. My panelists, I bow down to my panelists because they are so rad. And I bow down to like the people who took time out of their day to attend. And it was so rad. And we just had our Dallas event. Same thing. It was about health and wellness. And we had it at my friend's yoga studio in Dallas at V12 Yoga. And, I have a friend who is now a Latina, who is now the director of health and human services of Dallas County.
Wow.
I have a friend who is the national director for stuff for the American Heart Association. And we had a Latina doctor talking about mental health. And then my friend did a sound bowl to ground us all. So it's just, it's my dream come true. Every time I go, like I said, the fact that people want to take their time, 2 hours out of their day to come and spend with me and with the guests and with the other guests and with the panelists, I could not be more thankful and grateful for that, because people don't have to do that. And the fact that they do humbles me and makes me so grateful. And so it's just been so remarkable. And it's like I said from the beginning, it's my dream coming true. All of these people are part of making my dream come true.
Oh, I love that. I know I should have asked you this before we recorded, but I know that you were going through a rough time before you started the tour and everything. I know it was a journey, getting to that, and I know you shared it in your social media as well. You're feeling a little bit anxious and stuff. How did you kind of push yourself through that, and because it's hard, it's hard with what you went through and stuff. So I kind of want to know how did you continue to persevere, and I see you now and I'm you kept pushing and pushing, and look at how much you have accomplished now and what else you have more to accomplish. But I want to know how you kind of got through that, or what was your biggest motivation?
And also share a little bit of what Diana is talking about, just in case some of our audience, they do not follow you, because she has shared it, guys, on her social media. But if you don't follow Jessica, please let our audience know what that moment was like.
So I recently got let go from my job. I was there for about 1.5 years. And I was already sensing some things were off. You always try and put that to the back of your head. No, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. And my boyfriend had actually been trying to tell me to quit. He didn't like me coming home. So it wasn't the work, it was the people. I'm going to be very, very honest. I loved the work that I did. And I felt very misunderstood. I thought it was a place that I could be myself. Well, and I worked in government. So with the government representative that I worked for, totally I could be myself. The challenge that I was having was feeling understood by everybody else, because I was the only, besides the government official I was working for, I was the only other Latino on staff. And it became apparent that there just wasn't room for me anymore. And I got brought in and basically told, I'm not going to, beat around the bush. We got to let you go. And nobody likes to hear that. Nobody likes to feel like they're not good enough. And when somebody says, sorry, it's not working out, we got to let you go, that's how you feel. You feel like I'm not good enough. And somebody is validating that feeling, right? I already have ups and downs when it comes to imposter syndrome. And when somebody, and that it was almost for that moment was oh, okay, now you're confirming that I'm not good enough, right? And that's how it felt in that moment. And then I took a deep breath packed my stuff, went to the car, and I came home and I told my boyfriend, I said, I got let go. And he was like, thank God. That was his reaction. Thank God. I am so happy because you were miserable there. You were coming home so sad. I hated seeing that. And he's like, now just concentrate on the podcast. Just concentrate on the things that you want to do. I will take care of everything else. I will work on that. You do. I want you to be happy. And this is where you're happiest. And it was such a relief. At that moment, I felt like I could breathe again when he told me that and when he hugged me. And I realized he was right. Like I wasn't giving my best self to my work anymore or to my personal life anymore because I was always so stressed out. And he was like, promise me you're going to take the rest of this week off. Don't do anything. If you want to do it for the podcast, that's fine. But I don't want you looking for a job. I don't want you doing anything. I want you to relax. And when somebody, especially somebody that you love and you live with, and it's like, I feel like we're constant, like we don't give ourselves permission to do that so often that sometimes we need somebody else's like, no, this is what you need to do to be okay. And so I was like, okay. And I did, but honestly, it was probably the best thing. I reflection, right, is I know it was the best thing for me being let go because like I said, I wasn't happy, but I wasn't willing to quit. He was like wanting me to, and I was like, no, we want to buy a house, we want to do this, we want to buy that. And I just feel like it was the universe's way of saying, no, it's time. This is not where you're supposed to be. So it's like the universe's way of forcing your hand, right? Like you're not going to do it. Okay, I'm going to take care of it. And you know, it still stings because nobody wants to be told that or feel like that. But more than that, it was just more of an eye opener than anything else. Like, okay, this isn't for you. And you have something in front of you that you absolutely love and that you're good at. And you've been saying you want to do all of these things and you haven't had time. Well, now I'm giving you all of the time. And that's where I started. That's where I kind of had to work from. Right. And that's where I've been going. And it's not perfect. You know, last night, I think I had a moment where I felt like I just was bursting into tears because I was like, I'm not contributing anything. And I feel like I'm not used to that. Like I'm not used to somebody outside of growing up and my parents taking care of me. I'm not used to having anybody take care of me and say, don't worry, I'm going to take care of myself. I've always taken care of myself. And so I had a moment of like, what if I'm not providing enough in this relationship? Like I'm not bringing anything like really financially right now. And then my boyfriend had to remind me he's putting in work because I'm his retirement plan.
Yes.
But you know, humor, I think you have to take all of these things with a grain of salt. You have to have humor about the situation. You have to realize like it's not the end of the world. In fact, it's the beginning. For me in my journey, it's a whole new chapter. It's a whole, because now I get to concentrate on this. So it was really hard, but I'm fortunate to not only have such a supportive boyfriend, but supportive friends and a supportive network who remind me, and I get to remind them of how amazing they are. And they get to remind me of all of the things that I do bring to the table in life and in business and everything as well. So yeah, it was really rough, but just keep going.
What differences did you notice? Like you started your podcast when you were working. Now it's different because you're at 100% focused on your brand and your podcast. So what has been different about it?
Now I'm like, okay, who do I need? Like, I need sponsors. Like, I think it shifts your mindset to more of a business mindset versus like, this is, you know, I've had the podcast for 3.5 years now. And it definitely shifts the mindset in regards to, okay, well, how do I truly treat this like a business? Like, not just a hobby. Not to say that it was a hobby, because I feel like I was kind of already treating it like business, but I couldn't give all of my attention to it. But now I'm like fully treating it as a business, right? I got trademarked a couple of years ago. Now I filed my LLC. We're gonna be, Chisme Media, baby.
Yes.
But now, yeah, you really have to look at it as a business. Like, I'm committed to still keeping a schedule, getting up, doing my manifestations and my meditation and moving my body and writing down, like I was at work, like what are the things that I need to do today. And for me, that key, I still need to have some sort of routine, even if that routine changes every day. But at least now, like, okay, let's go walk the dogs. I don't have to worry about those other things. If I need to work late into the night because something I thought of something, I don't have to worry about, oh, I have to get up super early. But I do have to have some routine. For me, I know not everybody does. For me, I do still have to have routine so I can accomplish the things that I do want to accomplish. And I think it just shifts how you see, like for me, it's shifted how I see the podcast. And it's not just the podcast, right? It's the events, it's the tour, it's speaking engagements. It's the podcast is one branch of this tree of Chisme Media now. And I have to look at it as such.
Yeah. Did you ever think, like, when you started, like that's what you were gonna do, or did you have?
No,
like,
I'm an accident. No? I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. Absolutely. Because growing up, I feel like there's kind of two sets of Latino parents, or maybe just two sets of parents. I don't know, but I'm Latina, so I'm coming from my frame of mind, right? You have the entrepreneurs who started restaurants, started dry cleaners, started their own business. And you get a lot, like when your kids see that, that's what they know. Like, I want to do my own thing, this and that. Then you have the other set, my parents, who are like, you need a stable job, you need benefits, you need this, you need that. Like, you need to be in a quote unquote stable job. But then I think in 2020, we realized there's no such thing as a stable job. There's no such thing. I had a stable job I had a quote unquote stable job and I got let go. Like, there's no true thing as a stable job. So, so I didn't come from, and I never knew, like, if I were to start my own business, what would I do? Right? Like, what would I do? Yes, I work in communications. I could do this, I could do that, but I just never felt like super compelled to start something on my own. Until this. And as I continued to do it, I was like, this is awesome. Nobody tells me what to do, right? It's up to me to keep going. It's up to me to find my guests. It's up to me to set the procedures that happen, and everything. So the fact that this is what it took. Like I said, that's why I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. And then obviously I got let go from my job, and now I'm working on this full time. And now I'm doing the LLC. It's like, I never thought I would, like, I think you dream like, oh, one day, but then you're like, but how am I going to do it? Right.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, wait, no, I'm in it. I'm doing it. So yeah, it's really interesting, I think. And I don't think I'm the only person who becomes an accidental entrepreneur. I think sometimes we just have to do what we have to do to survive. And sometimes I think when we lean on our passions, my passion is talking to people and I love wine. But when we lean on our passions, it becomes so much easier.
Yes.
Than if we're just looking to become an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, I want to talk about how it is never too late to start something. You shared a reel on Instagram today, and we shared it in our Instagram, guys. You guys can check out her social media. We're going to tag her, and we're going to put all of her information on this episode. But you shared this reel where you're sharing how it is never too late to start something. Age does not matter. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, I was 43 when I started the podcast. I'll be 46 this year. Don't I look good?
Yes.
What's your secret, girl?
I know. I'm like
sunscreen and lots of water and wine.
And wine.
And wine.
Wine preserves you. I think so often we're told what our timelines have to be, right? I mean, I remember being in high school going, oh, I'm going to be married by the time I'm 23. I'm going to have my first kid by the time I'm 25. I'm going to like, where do we get this? Where
that Latina mindset, right? Like the Latina traditional lifestyle, that mindset.
Yeah, like where it's, and then I become 21 and I was like, ooh, maybe not 23, maybe 25. And then I get to 25, maybe 30. And when I get to 30, I'm like, oh, hell, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no clue what this life is going to bring. And, you know, I had a very non-traditional route because 2 weeks before my junior year, I grew up in a suburb of San Diego called Escondido. And then 2 weeks before my junior year started, we moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Lord, it was talk about traumatizing. And then a week after I graduated, we moved back to Escondido, right?
Oh my goodness.
And so during that 2-year period, I lost residency in California. Like I had been accepted to the University of New Mexico, but I was like, hell no, if I don't have to stay here, I don't want to stay here. Moved back to California. I lost residency. I had to wait another year, even though we'd lived in California our whole life. You move away for a year, you lose residency. And so I started working, and then I started going to community college, and that my parents wrote a check for that. I ended up getting, like, a professor said, oh, your payment has bounced. So I ended up having to remove myself from school. And again, this was a long, long time ago. My parents are rad. I'm not trying to be like shame my parents or anything, but that's just life. That's just stuff like that happens. And so my parents moved to Orange County. I eventually moved to Orange County. I start going to school. And then I moved to Dallas. And there's a long, just a random, I just decided to move to Dallas. And then I didn't have any residency at all. So I couldn't go to school because I couldn't afford it. And I got let go I was doing outdoor ad sales. And that was right when the economy was crashing in 2008. So I'm the last to get hired. I'm the first to get let go. And so I said, well, if I'm going to go to school, I better do it now. If I keep saying I want to go back to school, let's do it. So I started going back to school, and I didn't graduate college till I was 37. Almost 20 years to the day that I graduated high school is when I graduated college. And so I feel like I've kind of never had this traditional path in front of me. And I think that had I given up, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And I was 21 when I moved to Texas, drove by myself. And then when I finally decided to move back to California permanently, I was 39. And a lot happens. And I had a life in Texas. I had great friends. I have great friends. I had a life there that I really enjoyed and everything, but I knew it was time to come back home to San Diego. And that was the scary part, because I hadn't lived in San Diego in so long. Your friends move on. When you visit, it's one thing, but when you move back, it's different. Right. And because your friends don't have all the time to just, like, when you're visiting, your friends drop everything. Oh, you're coming. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. When you move back, they're like, oh, we'll see you later. So I felt almost like I was starting over again. And, you hear all of these stories of people who did things later in life. And I almost think, part of me wishes I would have found podcasting 10 years ago, right? And started it 10 years ago. But at the same time, I wouldn't have the life experience that I have now to appreciate it as much as I do. And I think we all have our own journey. We all have things that we rely on our life experiences to get us through the next thing. But, you know, if you're passionate about something, if you love something, why not? Right? Like, why do we have to let age, unless I am on my deathbed, right? Why do we have to let any society or cultural traditions or what we think determine how we're going to live our life and what we do and at what age we do it?
Yeah.
So that post was really about that. Like, you don't have to be in your 20s. In fact, I think your 20s, you should screw up. You should screw up and learn those lessons. And I'm not saying like you need to go to jail or anything, but just saying like it's okay to screw up. We think that life ends when you hit 40. No, my 40s have been the best decade of my life. And we forget that. We don't celebrate that enough. And don't, like, that's why I say it's never too late. Because if you still want it, there's still some fire in there for you to go do it.
Yeah. Give yourself the
Money breakdown.
opportunity. Give yourselves the opportunity, guys. Say yes to that dream, to that goal that you have been wanting to achieve.
Well, the time passes regardless, right?
Exactly.
So what are you going to do with that time?
Might as well live out your dreams, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think it's so important too, to also have like that community to back you up and to help you out, because like you said, it's not easy. We're not saying, guys, that it's easy. You're probably already thinking, well, of course they already have their podcast, they already have everything, so of course it's easy for them to say that, but it is not. We may have our podcast for some years now, but we still struggle. Like right now, we were struggling with the software that we're using to record this episode. So, it's already late and we're still here, figuring things out. We're still learning, as well as Jessica. She's still learning. She's doing this podcast tour. So it's something new. Like we're all learning along the way, even though we've been doing this for quite some time, right? But keep going, guys. Keep going.
I think you never stop learning either, right? Like if you stop learning, then you stop growing. So you always have to keep learning.
No, I don't want to ever stop learning until I'm, in my next phase of whether it's an afterlife or nothing, whatever. That's the day I stop learning, is this day I stop breathing.
Yes. So I wanted to ask you, like, you've been going through so much and like accomplishing so much, but what was like that moment that you're like, you just felt like so proud, like, that moment that you're like, oh my gosh, this is bringing me tears, or something? Like, what was that moment for you?
The LA moments. The very first live podcast event that I had. Because like I said earlier, that was a dream of mine. And I wanted to, this first year, I want to keep it really small. I've been, keeping it between like 35 and 55 people, because I still want people to feel like they can get to know others. And I want to be able to talk to everybody. If it becomes so huge, I still want to be able to talk to people and thank them for taking the time and to, for supporting me like that. I can't underestimate how much that means to me. So after I was done, I was so overwhelmed with emotion, and I was so proud because, like I said, like, thankfully I do events, but all of the logistics I do myself. Like sometimes day of, I have a couple people helping me with check-in and to set up, but basically like I do everything myself. With the exception of some of the press stuff, like with the press stuff that my team at Break Communications, I like don't want to underestimate like how amazing they've been. They've come out to help. They've flown out. They're just my team, Erica and Yana and Gio, they're amazing. So I don't want to underestimate that. But like I said, the actual logistics and stuff I have to do. And it's So to know that was coming, and I stressed myself out so bad. I'm like, what if nobody buys tickets? What if nobody buys tickets? Like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. What if like I do
What
all
if?
of this, I'm spending all this money and nobody comes because, again, I will be very, very honest. This year, I'm not making any money off of the tour because it's like a proof of concept. I want to know that people want to come. They're going to pay for the events. And I'm keeping the prices very, very reasonable, but between $30 and $60, depending on like early bird and what if they want a VIP ticket or not, and they get a gift bag if you're a VIP ticket holder. So it's not like I'm charging like $150 or I want to keep it reasonable. But I think the culmination of that, and everybody stood up and started clapping, and like it was so awesome because they were there to see these panelists. They were there, but they were there because we built this community. And I'm like so honored for that. And that, like, obviously this is what was happening. And I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for making my dream come true and being part of this dream, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't even be here, right? If it wasn't for the people who listened and who would come out, or who, I wouldn't even be here. So it's like, that's all. I don't even know what else to say on that.
Oh.
That is so
Yeah.
good.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for saying yes to yourself, for allowing yourself to continue on this journey, for not giving up, even though moments like the ones you shared are not always easy. But as you guys can hear, and you guys can watch this on YouTube, this is the result, of not giving up, of staying determined to that dream. And you guys can follow through Jessica's journey. She's on social media. She's got her podcast, The Wine and Chisme, which is amazing. And we totally recommend you guys to go and tune in, subscribe. This has been such an incredible time. I had missed this because you guys already know we had stopped recording because La Maria se enfermó. She got sick with COVID.
I'm glad you're feeling better, though.
Yes. So thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing all of this and for always being so real. That is what we need out there. And her podcast, guys, she is real. She talks about honesty in every single episode, every single special guest that she has on, including the Insightful Babes who were there, guys. They're all sharing their stories, and just know that your voice is super important. And Jessica, keep being a voice, girl. Keep being a voice. Don't give up. You already know there's a group of people out there who are interested in knowing more about what you have to share. So I'm really excited, Diana, to, see Jessica. I remember when we were on her podcast, and seeing her now with your podcast tour, everything that you're doing, it's incredible. And congratulations for everything.
Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a wild journey so far, and I'm sure it'll continue to be a wild journey, but honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way, because who wants boring, right? Like, I don't want boring. And, if you come away from anything, just know that, whatever you decide to do, if you're already living your dream, I applaud you and praise you and support you. If you are, trying to figure it out, it's okay. Don't feel like you're on anybody's timeline. You're only on your own timeline. And if you're just like, you know what, I'm just here to live, then that's awesome too. I think, you're seen, you're heard, and you're valued. And I think that it's so important for all of us to know that, even if I don't know you, even like with your listeners too, when you guys I'm sure people listen and everything, and they listen for a reason, because you connect with them and they feel seen and valued in some way because they keep tuning in. And I hope that that's what people get, that they know that they're seen and heard, even if you don't literally know them. They're getting something from this because they feel valued, and they value you guys as well.
I love that.
Yes, Jessica Yañez, you are a total insightful babe.
Thank you. Sometimes I'm like, when I'm a guest, I'm like, dang, I'm kind of smart.
Yeah, girl. Let our audience know where they can reach you.
The Wine and Chisme Podcast.com. If I'm always accepting guest applications. So if you have a story, if you come from communities of color and you have a story that you want to share, you can go there. The Wine and Chisme on Instagram, TikTok. I think it's the Wine and Chisme Podcast on Facebook, and anywhere. I'm still working on the YouTube on the video portion because now I have time. But any audio place, so iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, like all of those things, you're able to find the Wine and Chisme Podcast.
Thank you. And then I just want to do one last thing. Can you tell us your favorite dicho or favorite quote?
The answer is always no if you don't ask the question.
Know that.
It's something my mom like really instilled in me, because she would always be like, well, how do you know? Did you ask? No. Well, then how do you know? And then she was just like, the answer is always no if you don't ask the question. So that's kind of how I live everything all the time, because it's true.
Yeah. Love that.
If you don't ask, if they say no, you're no better off. But what if they say yes?
Love it. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for making time for us and for this episode, guys. You guys can connect with her. We're going to leave all of her information here on this episode. You guys can also find this episode on YouTube. And wow, this has been super motivating. I feel fired up, even though it's already about to be 10 p.m. here in Texas.
For you, yeah. For me and Diana, it's not even 8 o'clock.
The sun's still out.
We're good. We're going to go for a walk now. Diana, we still need to get together. We've been saying this.
We need to, yes.
Hey, how about you guys do a meetup over there in San Diego? I know we have a lot of audience here, our listeners from San Diego. So if you guys want that, if you guys want to meet Jessica and Diana, you guys should get together.
Yeah, we should. We'll figure something out.
Yeah. Ahí les avisamos. We'll let you guys know. But thank you so much, guys. Wishing you all the best.
Gracias.